Now, in other developing news, in a significant diplomatic move, President Cyril Ramaphosa has appointed former Deputy Finance Minister Mcebisi Jonas as South Africa's special envoy to the United States. Jonas will lead negotiations, foster strategic partnerships, and engage with the U.S. government as well as private sector leaders. His appointment comes at a time when relations between South Africa and the U.S. are at an all-time low due to recent tensions over differing views on geopolitical matters and economic policies. The president believes Jonas's extensive governmental experience as former Deputy Finance Minister will be crucial in navigating these challenges in this new diplomatic role. Of course, we know Jonas previously served as one of 4 presidential investment envoys appointed by President Cyril Ramaphosa back in 2018, and that was aimed at facilitating investments into the country. Well, for more on this, we're joined now in studio by my colleague, Vuyo Mvoko, Newzroom Afrika's political economy editor. Vuyo, great to see you. And it's an interesting development, isn't it? What do we make of it?
An inspired choice. I mean, no doubt he's well respected within the governing party, but also outside by such key stakeholders in this context as organized business. The big question, of course, is whether the Trump administration will accord him that respect as well. But he has a wealth of experience and he knows how to navigate. This is not the first position that he's going to occupy, as you said. I mean, he's been cast in these roles before, so he brings with him that wealth of experience.
Yeah, and even in his, for us to say his position as former Deputy Finance Minister is perhaps to simplify it somewhat. It was a massive position at a time in the country when South Africa itself was facing a lot of political upheaval, and he has experience in dealing with other countries on finance matters and matters of geopolitical interest.
You're so right, also because I mean, the Deputy Finance Minister is probably the only Deputy Minister with a job, with a very real job. Others are really, are not in the same situation. So he had actual responsibilities within the Ministry of Finance, but also importantly, certainly in this context also, he does, and I can say this matter-of-factly, have the ear of the president. He has always had. And perhaps the fact that the president has appointed him as a special envoy, I heard of appointing an ambassador to the United States, probably give us a sense of where the president's priorities lie, that you've got to fix trade relations, you've got to take into account or promote or advance the interests of our economy before everything else. That probably tells us that he's treating that with the priority that it actually deserves, certainly at this time. Perhaps also this is an opportune time for a special envoy to move in, given last week's about turn, that 90-minute hold on imposing tariffs. So perhaps this is the best opportunity for someone like Mcebisi Jonas as a special trade envoy to not only mend relations, but to advance the country's economic interests.
And we know he has the gravitas. We know that he has a very steady stomach in incredibly difficult circumstances. Of course, this is the Deputy Finance Minister who reportedly turned down a bribe from the Gupta family and testified to that end at the state capture inquiry.
He comes indeed with that reputation of being the good guy, but also probably has the right temperament. He's not an offensive person, he's not an aggressive person, so he will, but he's firm,
right,
both in his thinking, but also in how he comes across whenever he has conversations. He says what he actually means, but without being too, I was going to make an example on that.
You've already made the example of other deputy ministers who don't have real jobs.
But he has the right, temperament. He comes across as a very sober, but also firm person, so yeah.
Yeah. In terms of the next ambassador, the person who will replace Ibrahim Rasool as ambassador to the US, do you think that this perhaps puts Mcebisi Jonas on track for that position?
I doubt it's something he would want to I mean, from my sort of from what I know him about him, I doubt if that's something he would want to actually do. And if you read that statement carefully, the statement by the president, he says, well, he is the chairperson of MTN, and he will play this role alongside his role as MTN. I think the fact that they pointed that out probably gives us a hint that if he was indeed approached for that particular job, he's not keen on it.
Right, right. So the big question then becomes, Vuyo, will the US be open to these kinds of conversations? How do we now lay the groundwork with everything that's happened over the past few weeks and months? We know relations with the US, between the US and South Africa, are at an all-time low. What groundwork needs to be laid now before these geopolitical discussions get underway?
It's really working the system, knowing who to speak to, speaking to, but also speaking to all those people who matter, who have President Donald Trump's ear. You would have seen at the weekend that he sent another social media post where he was again on his trip, asking whether he should even come for the G20 Heads of State Summit in November. So the relations are indeed frosty, continuing. Yeah. They continue to be. So Mcebisi Jonas and whoever eventually gets appointed to be the ambassador, they really have to work the system. They don't have a choice but to speak to such people as Elon Musk and the broader business community. That, in fact, in particular, those people who were able to lean on President Donald Trump to make that about 10 with regard to the tariffs. They have to find out who those people are, and perhaps that should be their our first point of call. Yeah,
and I wonder, given what Trump has said about the heads of states meeting is it November for the G20, and the fact that he might well not attend. I mean, this is where South Africa hands over the reins of the G20 to the US. So for him to not attend would be a huge slap in the face, a huge diplomatic issue. But depending on how well things go with the special envoy who's just been appointed, might we mend relations to the point even where we could save a goer?
I think we can. I think we can. I think what he was trying to do, especially at the weekend, was to sort of put out some fillers, and kind of say, it was kind of saying, this is my reading, of course, that talk to me, convince me, that I should come. Beg me even, if you will. I don't think he has made up his mind, but of course he's putting it out there that if he wants to, in what he thinks will embarrass, South Africa, talk to me. I'm still kind of amenable, but you know what? I'm going to play hardball.
Right.
Yeah, so I drive a hard bargain.
Well, you say it's an inspired choice. Mcebisi Jonas is now South Africa's special envoy to the US. Vuyo Mvoko, thanks very much for coming into studio. Vuyo is Newzroom Afrika's political economy editor as we continue to track that story. It brings us to 12:58. Your headlines at the top of 1 o'clock. Stay with us.